Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where it's our 14th anniversary! And yes, as is customary for the anniversary, it's time for another mini-series from the Clone Saga. And already some of you are typing, wait, after 14 years we're still not done with the Clone Saga? So let's talk about that. People continue, year after year, to be shocked at how we haven't advanced that much further in this bloated monster of a story. How many books were in this thing, they ask? I tried once to show the visual representation of the entirety of the Clone Saga. So many damn books stacked together, but still people are surprised. Maybe the problem is just a matter of numbers. Let's break this down. An average comic book series lasts 12 issues per year. But we're not dealing with one comic book series. Recall that at the time the Clone Saga started, there were 4 Spider-Man books. Amazing, Spectacular, Web of, and Adjectiveless. That's 48 comics in a single year, with a single multi-part storyline like we've been covering once per year, usually only taking up 4 issues of that. So hey, you're thinking, alright, so that's like 12 storylines in the Clone Saga, right? Well, no, because the Clone Saga didn't only last 1 year, it lasted about 2 to 3. Closer to 2, admittedly, especially when you consider that its opening storyline, Power and Responsibility, had Adjectiveless Spider-Man number 51 as part of it, and the Clone Saga officially ended with Spider-Man number 75. So definitely around 24 issues per book, like 96 issues total. Roughly 24 stories, assuming 4 issues per story. So hey, you're thinking, that must mean we're about halfway done then, right? We've been looking at one Clone Saga storyline per year, did the same one twice because of the 10th anniversary, but that's still about 13 multi-parters out of 24, right? And no, not at all. See, it's not enough for the Clone Saga to take place only in the 4 main Spider-Man books. Recall that the marketing department was dictating policy at this point, and the clone stuff was raking in cash while the rest of the company was sinking. So you keep putting out stuff related to it. We've got special issues, we've got annuals, we have Spider-Man Unlimited, which published every few months. We've got tie-ins to other books like New Warriors because of the weird restructuring of Marvel's various departments at the time. We've got short-lived series like The Heroic Green Goblin. We've got the renumbering and renaming for a promotional stunt before making Ben Reilly Spider-Man. And we've got miniseries! Lots and lots of miniseries! Stuff like Planet of the Symbiotes, Spider-Man, The Final Adventure, and what we're looking at today, Spider-Man: A Funeral for an Octopus, the follow-up to the last storyline I covered, wherein Dr. Octopus died. Correction, one of the times he's died. Otto Octavius has in fact died and been reborn multiple times now. So you get my point, right? There's a reason the Clone Saga is so infamous. It's not just that it was a bad storyline that lasted a while, it was a bad storyline that was inescapable because it seems like it never ends. There is always something new, some other subject that needs to be covered because it was the only thing that was making Marvel any money at the time, and they just milked it until it was less milking and more trying to squeeze blood from a stone. And that's not even getting into the follow-ups. Ultimate Spider-Man's Clone Saga, the miniseries that covered the original plan for the Clone Saga in 6 issues, and The Clone Conspiracy, the Spider-Man event comic from 2016 that officially brought Ben Reilly back to life, for better and for worse. And until I'm forced to stop doing this show, I'm gonna eventually cover it all no matter how many years it takes, even if still just one storyline at a time.
This is starting to sound like a bad comic book plot.
And that, my friends, is why the Clone Saga was my Halloween special first episode in 2008. Because screw Sadako crawling out of a TV to murder you, nothing is more frightening in comics than the Clone Saga. And recall that this wasn't the plan from the start. No one said at the outset, let's keep this train rolling for 2 years. The plot kept getting extended because of outside factors. Marketing forcing them to do it. Them wanting to make sure that when it did end, they'd have a satisfying conclusion for the journey. Shakeups in staff and the company overall. Sometimes stuff like this just happens and you gotta be patient and weather the storm. You know, like a storyline for an internet review show that was supposed to be over and done with in less than a year that somehow extended to multiple years, but you're really close to finally closing it out and moving on from it. Anyway, last year in Spider-Man Web of Death, Peter Parker was dying from some kind of experimental poison, only to be found by Dr. Octopus and his girlfriend Stunner. After unmasking Peter, Doc Ock actually dedicated himself to saving his life, thinking that the inherent nobility of his greatest enemy was good and inspired him about the world having such people in it. And instead of taking that lesson to heart and becoming a good guy, he just wanted to continue being a criminal and fight Spidey another day. Totally makes sense. Anywho, in order to hype up the as-yet revealed to be another clone Kane, Doc Ock is killed by him. And that leads us into today's story. Surprisingly, Life of Riley, the interview series that's pretty much the definitive behind-the-scenes look at the Clone Saga, has absolutely nothing about this miniseries. It kind of made sense when it didn't have anything on the heroic Green Goblin book, since that was just kind of adjacent to the saga rather than an active part of it, but the best we get is, oh, we last saw the Vulture in this miniseries, like several entries after this point. So let's dig into Spider-Man, Funeral for an Octopus, and see if it was worth completely ignoring in that.
Welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. What's with these awkward subjects? What's all this art so rubbish? To anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he is a man, punch, sporadically a grouch. Linkara, he has his own spaceship, but he's always on his couch. Linkara, ghosts, gods, a universe in flux. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
Reading from a trade, so no looking at the covers, but I do want to spotlight the first parts just because I don't get to talk about good covers nearly enough. Dr. Octopus's robot arms emerging from his grave to strangle Peter and Ben. That's awesome. Kudos. The other two covers suck by comparison. We open outside a cordoned-off warehouse where a policeman is standing guard. It was at a place like this that it all began, when a shy teenage boy faced off against an armed gunman and learned a valuable lesson that would last a lifetime, that a layer of pudding does not make him bulletproof. Spidey is broken into this warehouse where Doc Ock cured his poisoning. According to a caption, this takes place directly after those events. Looks like the feds gave the lab a good once-over. Took everything that wasn't nailed down. So much for those commemorative plates I wanted. However, one thing they didn't take was a sample of the toxin that nearly killed him. We also get a flashback of him getting poisoned and Otto saving him. One way or the other, Doc, it's payback time. I'm gonna cure your death just like you cured me. Spidey swings over to Doc Ock's official funeral, which is of course also being covered by dozens of camera crews. Looks more like a circus than a funeral down there. Funeral clowns usually make less balloon animals. He decides it's best to go to the funeral as Peter Parker, both to evade the media storm with him in costume, as well as paying his respects, because it was Peter Parker who was saved in that last encounter with him. He gets through, though bumps into a cameraman on the way in. Hey, watch it, fella! This is news! News? Hardly. Try exploitation and sensationalism. Oh man, I can't wait to turn this funeral coverage into a listicle! Peter meets up with the other staff of the Daily Bugle covering it. J. Jonah Jameson is annoyed about the TV reporters lacking integrity, while Robbie Robertson points out that he had wanted a full-color insert in the morning paper on it. Humph! That's different! That's journalism! It would have been exploitation if it had been done in black and white! Betty Brant is there as a reporter, but Peter's attempts to keep her on task fail miserably, as Betty reminds him, and the audience, that Dr. Octopus is responsible for her cousin's death. Anyway, a man heads to a lectern to speak. Dear friends, I am Elias Hargrove. We are gathered here under gray skies to bid farewell to my cousin, Dr. Otto Octavius. But first, we have some birthdays to announce. His time among us was all too brief, but to those whose lives he touched, he shall remain a most profound influence. Yeah, calling him an influence was probably the most respectful way of saying he ruined many people's lives. When I look back, I prefer not to think of him as Dr. Octopus, but rather as the benevolent, sensitive soul he once was. The son of a migrant laborer, gifted with a ruthless intellect beyond his station. A man of science whose gift brought hope to others, but only pain and suffering upon himself. Dude, points for wanting to remember him for his better qualities, but, his gift of science brought a lot of pain and suffering on others. Maybe you want to rephrase that? As he reads some scripture, we pull back to see that the Scarlet Spider is watching these events from afar. I never met Dr. Octopus. Not really. My memories of him were artificially implanted, not based on any actual experience. Still, I know him. Despise him by proxy. In today's episode, Ben Reilly learns about parasocial relationships, the downside of being the clone of Peter Parker. Maybe, in the end, memories are all we can truly call our own. But you just literally said that those memories aren't your own. What? Hours later, when the crowd is finally cleared out, Spidey goes down in costume to pay his respects. We weren't so very different, you and I, Doc. I mean, maybe we could have even swapped bodies at some point. He says that if not for Aunt May and Uncle Ben, he might have lashed out at the world too. It's ironic. By saving me, you've caused me more anguish than ever. Why won't the universe just let me die? He swings off, dedicated to bringing Ox Killer to justice, and we cut back to Elias Hargrove as he bicycles home. He exposits in his thought balloons that he was actually under Otto's thumb all these years, and now that he's dead, he might enjoy freedom from all that. But then Doc Ock's attorney, Gerds, shows up and delivers something to him. Gerds is the executor of Otto's estate, so despite Hargrove saying he wants no part in it, Gerds makes it clear that he's not out yet. And it turns out to be a videotape. Otto's last wish was for Elias to be cursed by Sadako. See, I'm justifying still being in the Halloween outfit. Elias Hargrove, if you are watching this, it is safe to assume that I am dead. Or that you needed a spare tape to record something, in which case, go ahead, TiVo hasn't been invented yet. Otto says he's leaving all legal rights to his patents and inventions and worldly goods to him, saying that he was impressed by Elias in a recent miniseries and he might just need the opportunity to thrive. He also leaves some instructions on how he can claim his rightful heritage. We cut over to the Vulture as he's flying through New York, apparently having been summoned by someone to a secret location. However, on the way, he's intercepted by the Scarlet Spider. They fight for a bit, Ben getting to show off impact webbing and his stinger darts, but the Vulture blasts a building to endanger some innocents on the streets. Blast you, Vulture! Endangering innocents to save your own worthless hide, just like Ock once did, and Gwen's dad, Captain George Stacy, paid the price. Well, history won't repeat itself. I won't let it! Okay, points for not just shoving a woman off a bridge yet again, Clone Saga, but did you need to invoke another member of the Stacy family's death in the process here? It's kind of a I won't let Gwen die again by proxy as a result. Still, Ben manages to shoot a tracer onto Vulture's wing as he gets away. The Vulture arrives at a building with a false wall, which he opens up to a high-tech base, where the Hobgoblin, Mysterio, and Electro are all waiting. The remnants of the Sinister Six. From there, we move into an interlude 18 pages into a 22-page comic, taking place at a factory in Long Island. There, a scientist named Moretti is being yelled at by a suit named Reinhold. The government has managed to get their hands on Dr. Octopus's metallic arms. The things are actually a masterpiece of cybernetic engineering and could be really helpful as a weapon or a tool, so Moretti is working on finding a way to replicate them. But I guess Reinhold just expected him to be able to do it just by looking at them, since Moretti is going about the study very carefully and slowly, and that pisses him off. I've requisitioned the computer files and equipment we expropriated from the good doctor's lab. Maybe you can buy a clue among the refuse. But these encephalographic readouts don't make any sense. Neither do bumblebees, Moretti. And yet they're close to replicating the robotic arms. They can't fly, not according to every aerodynamic principle in the book, especially the conservation of energy. Doesn't stop 'em from zipping up and zapping your keister. A deadly bee weapon. Bees, my god. As it happens, we do know how bumblebees fly. Their wings aren't rigid and they make very quick sweeping motions front and back, creating enough lift for them. Just goes to show how much of a moron you look like when you don't know what you're talking about, Reinhold. After Peter returns home to MJ to sulk about how he can't find Doc Ock's killer, we cut back over to the Sinister Six, fearsome four, I guess. As it turns out, it was Elias Hargrove who summoned them. Otto Octavius's notes and equipment have been confiscated by the government. You are going to help me retrieve them. In other words, gentlemen, are you bad enough dudes to kidnap the president? They're reluctant to help out, but Elias says they'll be well compensated, and they might as well anyway, because Doc Ock gave him files on all of them that would be bad if the information ever got out. However, he's interrupted by the arrival of the Scarlet Spider, who starts tying the villains up in impact webbing and ending the first issue. And the Scarlet Spider is going to take great pleasure in taking you out permanently! Kane set the precedent for killing old villains to hype up new ones, so I'm just gonna get a head start on that! We pick up exactly where we left off, Hobgoblin recognizing the new hero. Gosh, it's great to be noticed. Guess my press agent really does know his stuff. Guess I will do that suppository commercial. But I wonder, will success spoil America's favorite sweatshirted sensation? Which is a worse nickname, Arachnite or Sweatshirted Sensation? You make the call! The villains escape the webbing, but the Scarlet Spider actually does pretty damn well against them. He reminds the villain, and the audience, that he took down Venom, and it's a good showcase of the character here. A reminder that they were planning on revealing him as the real Peter down the line, even if they were also planning on switching it back again as well. He even gets a dig at Hobgoblin not being as good a villain as Green Goblin, which, yeah, makes sense. Hobgoblin premiered after the original Clone Saga, so this would be the first time the two actually encountered one another. Still, the four eventually managed to bring the ceiling down on him and bury him in rubble, because we're only on part 2 after all. In Elias's apartment, he packs up the portable transmitter, which is actually pretty impressive in how it condenses into that suitcase from the look of things, but probably weighs like 200 pounds. I only hope that Spider character didn't catch a glimpse of my face in the view screen. Well, his first shot of impact webbing hit directly on the screen, dude, so yeah, chances are he saw you. Why did he try to web up the screen? He resumes the tape, which apparently is supposed to be paused and continued as each step of the plan is completed. However, Elias notices something about the message and then decides to walk off. These instructions must be followed to the letter. No need to go any further, dear cousin. I already know what needs to be done. Time to invest in NFTs. Back at the government facility, Moretti has succeeded in creating a helmet that mimics Doc Ock's brainwave patterns, thus the wearer can mentally control the robotic arms while wearing them. However, they're interrupted by the four villains launching their attack on the facility. It seems the arms had a tracking device on them that Elias provided the info on, allowing them to find the place and storm in. Nearby, a figure watches. By all means, my friends, stay close and make my task all the easier. He's their official photographer. They arrive at the lab where they're trying to hastily pack up the arms. Electro zaps Reinhold and by Die Hard's crotch! I don't think human bodies are supposed to bend like that! Well, I've got a news flash for you, G-Man! You don't know who you're dealing with! Man, imagine if you could do that to the G-Man in Half-Life. The Vulture heads over to grab the arms, but is stopped by the arrival of Spider-Man. He apparently picked up a blip on his spider sense via Ben's tracker on the Vulture and followed it here. While Spidey fights the four, a figure in shadows grabs something else in the room and leaves. Spider-Man grabs Mysterio and berates him for just using the missed up the sleeve bit. Listen up, Misty. These are the big leagues, not Star Search 95. You're just jealous that Mysterio won in the junior dance category. So you might want to retire that bubble before you get seriously hurt. Like Ock! Or worse, you're used in an elaborate revenge scheme revolving around Norman Osborn having 2 kids with Gwen Stacy, and yes, that is the eventual explanation for Sins Past, and yes, it is hilarious to see all the fan art of Mysterio wearing a blonde wig and making out with Norman Osborn! The villains start to counterattack, but Spidey gets an idea as Hobgoblin throws some pumpkin bombs at him. And Spidey returns by throwing some punches their way with Dr. Octopus's arms. Don't bail out now, guys. The party's just getting started. And in case you couldn't tell, something new has been added to the mix. Say hello to the amazing Octo Spidey! I had the toy of this as a kid. This also got slipped into the Spider-Man animated series' finale as an alternate universe Spider-Man, so you know somebody was a fan, or they were trying to justify the toy being a part of the show's action figure line. Mind you, my question is how Spidey knew he could do this. The dialogue about being able to control the thing happened before anyone got there. But yeah, he soon takes to it and is able to use the arms to fend off the villains, At least until Hobgoblin is able to zap the helmet from behind. It overloads the command circuits, and thus they start walking on their own without his control. He's weakened by this, and the harness is on him tight, so he can't break free of them. Electro and Mysterio flee, but they are quickly attacked by the figure from earlier stalking them, Kane, who smashes Mysterio's fishbowl and ends part 2. We begin with Spider-Man still out of control in the arms, and the issue's title. A farewell to arms. That pun was the entire reason you guys made this, isn't it? The military soldiers have regrouped under Moretti's command, who orders them to shoot Spidey dead. Without his mental commands, the arms should stop on their own, since, of course, they care more about the arms than his life.
I'm the government, I'm the government, I'm the reason nothing works.
Still, the arms are programmed for self-defense, so they attack the soldiers. Though Spidey knows they're a little too good at that, and has to use his webs to keep them from killing people. Meanwhile, Ben wakes up and breaks free of the rubble, saying in his thought clouds that his spider sense allowed him to evade the larger chunks of rubble so he could survive. He wants to go after the villains, but has no idea where they are. But I'd lay dollars to donuts that mousy guy I saw on their view screen does, and I bet you credits to Navy Beans that you could just do what you did before, use your tracer. Still, he recognized the guy as Elias and decides to go have a chat with him. Back to our villains, Kane tries to use his mark on Mysterio to kill him, only to discover that it's actually a robot double of the guy. Electro tries to use this as an opportunity to take out Kane, but he's able to resist the blast. Not sure how exactly. Kane's just supposed to be a clone of Peter with more enhanced powers. How does that make him immune to electrocution? Back to Spidey, with the military regrouping to try to shoot from all sides, he finally uses all his strength to rip through the harness and escape it. But that wrecks the whole thing in the process, much to Moretti's anger. Do you realize what you've done? Those arms were the very pinnacle of encephalo-responsive prosthetics technology! Now they're nothing but scrap metal! Well, yeah, but the arms themselves are still relatively intact, and you still got all of Otto's files. Sure, not having the working model sucks, but I'm pretty sure you have enough to just rebuild it. Our research was government-sanctioned, you vandal! Uncle Sam's gonna have your hide for... And Spidey webs up the dude's mouth. Oh, if only we could do that to real government figures. Hey, don't bother to thank me, Curly. Just remember me come Christmas. Moretti's Christmas gift is diabolical. He sends him a new Dr. Octopus harness with all the arms, but it's child size, so Peter can't wear it. And he doesn't include a gift receipt. Kane is about ready to kill Electro, but spots Spider-Man swinging closer. The two hadn't encountered each other yet, so Kane flees, not wanting to risk meeting him as of yet. Spidey is of course confused about what the heck happened since there's an unconscious Electro and a destroyed robot Mysterio. We cut over to Elias, who storms into the offices of Attorney Gerds with a gun, demanding to know what his deal is. The tape you gave me, Otto's living will, is a fraud! It's a bootleg! Whoever computer-generated the imagery knew a great deal about my cousin, but apparently little about the laws of optics. And that is why AI art is a brilliantly conceived toy and tool, but it's never going to replace real artists. He realized that the reflection of New York City in Otto's glasses was upside down, something he calls impossible, but I'm dubious about that. There are probably some legit explanations for why that would occur, but Gerds admits to it, saying he'll have to do better the next time he does this. When he steps closer, Elias shoots at him, but Gerds is revealed to be a holographic projection by Mysterio. He knocks Elias away, explaining what his whole thing was about. Doc Ock had indeed accrued a lot of knowledge and secrets about underworld figures, but that info had fallen into the hands of the government along with Otto's other computer files. As such, this whole convoluted scheme was set up so Mysterio could bust into the government facility and steal a data core that contained all the information. Overly elaborate plan, yes, but it kinda makes sense. Plausible deniability for himself, especially once he had the information. Everyone's distracted by the wrong things to be after, and Elias could take the fall if things went sideways. He has hit a snag, though. The data core is encrypted, designed to self-destruct if the proper decryption code isn't put in. Mysterio figures that Elias, being Otto's cousin, would have said code. This does admittedly tilt my head a bit, since it implies that the data core itself belonged to Otto, and this wasn't just a government one. But then, does that mean the government were able to decrypt it? Elias, of course, has no idea, but before Mysterio can respond to that, the Scarlet Spider comes crashing through the window. He explains that he followed Elias here after he escaped from the rubble. Mysterio tries to use his tricks to fight him off, but Scarlet is able to see through it and hit him with impact webbing. Realizing the jig is up, Mysterio elects to activate the data core without the decryption, which turns it into a bomb. Our hero grabs Elias and escapes the explosion. Later, as firefighters deal with the explosion, Scarlet Spider says that Mysterio couldn't have survived the explosion unless that wasn't really him in the first place. What's sad is that any of the explanations for this, really dead, robot, or someone impersonating him, are all equally valid possibilities when it comes to superhero comics. Elias expects to be handed over to the police for his part in all this, but Scarlet says he's letting him off with a warning. He encourages him to make his own choices and not be ruled over by his cousin, but that if he persists in a criminal career, he'll take him down. Meanwhile, Peter is watching the sun rise on the docks. It's funny, I started out looking for answers, and even though I've come up dry, I feel strangely liberated. Man, who knew that all you needed to feel free was robotic tentacles? And so our comic ends with Spidey declaring that he'll find Doc Ock's killer and bring him to justice. When Doc Ock brought me back from the brink, he made it all possible. In a way, I am his living legacy, and I won't let him down. I'm gonna form my own Sinister Six and become a supervillain in his honor. This comic is perfectly fine. Doesn't really advance the Clone Saga or act as some grand memorial honoring the memory of one of Spidey's greatest foes, but it's perfectly serviceable. It's just a fun little action-adventure story about people trying to exploit the memory of Doc Ock and it going badly for them. It's a story that didn't need to be told, but it's not awful. This would actually be perfectly fine as regular issues of a Spider-Man book or an extra-sized annual issue or something. As its own miniseries, it's just kind of whatever. It feels like Spidey doesn't really do much in the way of pondering or soul-searching about the weird feelings he has concerning Doc Ock, given that he owes the guy his life, yet was one of his greatest enemies. He basically just states, it's kind of weird, and then moves on. I wonder Life of Riley didn't say anything about it. There's nothing to talk about with it. Hell, despite being Doc Ock's girlfriend in the storyline when he died, Stunner makes no appearance here. Next time... Well, as you may have noticed, these last few episodes didn't really come out throughout October like they were supposed to. We've been behind for quite a while, and I need to play catch-up again. Expect some history of Power Rangers, but Atop the Fourth Wall will properly return in December with some Christmas quickies. It was then that the daughter stopped loving her parents. She realized the truth about them and the goals they hoped to achieve. And she grew very angry and hateful, and yet also rejoiced as she did as her parents had wanted, lost everything that she was so that they could have their weapon and kill for their god. The daughter poured all of her rage, all of her hate, all of everything that was mad that she did not know she possessed into that weapon. Every unchecked drop of emotion was placed into the instrument. It seemed as if she had put her very soul into it. And when the parents tried to pick up the weapon, to use it in their righteous cause, the weapon burned them, burned their minds, and burned their souls. It plunged their psyches into nightmares too horrible for them to comprehend, giving reprieve only so it could be snatched up, and the haunting of their very being could continue. But before the parents received their final suffering, they asked the weapon why. Why would it do this to them? They loved their god, and had even sacrificed the life of their own daughter for it. And then the weapon replied, "Because I have seen the face of God." and it is my own, and I will make this world scream to show its love for me." With those words etched into their last thoughts, the parents descended into madness and death, the new god laughing at this expression of their love. And with no one left to stop her, she went and found a weapon of her own to use, a madman who dreamt of conquest just as much as she did.
Let me tell you what hatred is. It's the pettiness, the small tortures, the little tiny bits of pain that the one who is hated suffers. The sheer joy one gets when inflicting the tiniest amount of pain on them, returning back everything they feel in even the tiniest amount, brings nothing but glee, and then wanting more, wanting to see it increase more and more. And it's never enough. But that's okay. Once I can't hurt you anymore, I'll find something else to hate. I'm beginning to think you're not paying attention to me.
I'm sorry, I spaced out. You were saying something about hatred, I think. Yeah, something like that. There's no point to this, you know.
The point of this is to make you feel pain.
Should have just made me reread Marvel.
This is funny to you?
Oh, no, this is incredibly painful. I just think I'm funnier than I am.
Well, I admit you're making me laugh.
Stop this. I'm begging you to stop this.
Yes, beg. More begging, more pleading, more prayers to your God. Me! What's so funny this time?
You think you're a god? I fought gods before. You're an angry little girl, lashing out at everything because you don't know what else to do. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have tried to get you away from the mirror universe version of me. I should have done something more. Should have tried to look for you more thoroughly after he was dead. Showed you that there is something more than what you went through.
I am not your failure. How dare you take my choices and make them your fault? How arrogant are you? He didn't take me. He didn't do anything to me. I picked him because he was a useful tool. Nothing more. Count my sins. Remember them. Fear them. And then I invite you to pray for me. Though I can assure you God won't be listening, because I'll be too busy watching you suffer.
Then you're worse than I thought.
Of course, a god has to be best at her talents.
No, you're pathetic. You want to be a god? You're craving something you'll never have. Escalating satisfaction. More blood, more pain, more suffering. It's diminishing returns each time. Cruelty is a thrill that expires because you always need more of it. Crave more of it. Same old tortures become boring. You cozy up to someone to feed off their accomplishments, but it will never be enough. You will never know satisfaction. You will never be a god, because what you are is a parasite. When a good person dies, their achievements in helping others, uplifting others, shows that their life had meaning and brought nothing but joy and warmth. 1,000 more people made better for having known them. But evil? Evil is a loser ideology. When you die, the cruelty ends, the pain is over. There is only relief that this awful person is gone. You can't take your cruelty with you. You'll still be unsatisfied. Good people are revered and raised up. Bad people are buried.
I will kill you!
It doesn't matter! you'll still be gone. You still won't be a god. And I'll still be laughing.
There's nowhere to run. You think you can save me, but no one's coming to save you. Let's try that again, shall we?
Please don't do that.
You don't give me orders.
I asked you nicely, child.
What the hell?
Speaking of parasites.
What are you?
Once upon a time, a very powerful magic gun decided that I had become arrogant and self-righteous, and that I was on a path that would make me a very bad person. And so she turned my magic off. I went on a quest to get it back, and I heard rumors about a box, a magic box, full of power and nightmares and dark dreams. So I decided to take a look. Maybe I'd get some answers. And what I found waiting for me was a ghoul named Moarte. Moarte took me, tied me up, and asked me why he shouldn't kill me for invading his space. So I explained my quest, I explained who I was, and he was intrigued. Moarte wanted to tell people about horror comics. So we struck a deal. Or rather, he struck an ultimatum. Let him use my living space to talk about horror comics, or my soul would never stop screaming. And so I agreed. And I can't get rid of him. Because despite how he acts, despite how many stories you hear about him, and despite how many insults we throw at each other, the simple truth is that wherever he came from, he is far more powerful and far more dangerous than he appears to be. And you do not upset him. And you certainly don't do anything to his long box of the damned. What did you do to her? I didn't finish what I started, but she's gone. That's unfortunate. Whatever. Still, Moarte, I do want to thank you for... Do not involve me in your pathetic little squabbles again. They are beneath me. I am here to entertain the children, to share with them ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties. I am happy to verbally spar with you, because on occasion you do manage to eke out a little bit of entertainment, especially when talking about my most beloved of genres. But I can break this arrangement as easily as I can break your neck. And I am not amused by your serialized antics, and I want no part in them. Do you understand? Understand? Good. Hey, Mark!
What's up, dude? Poker tonight?
You know it!
I'm gonna kick the socks off you. Long socks of the damned.
It was not funny the last 8 times you made that pun.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. One more thing before you leave, Moarte. Happy 10th anniversary. Thanks! I don't approve of your friendship with him.
Well, tough. You don't get to decide that.
Yeah.
Do you think she's gone forever?
I doubt it.
There are too many ghosts in our lives.
I hear that. It seems to be the one thing we're good at. The past coming back to haunt us.
pocket universe. We can't stay long. The power requirements to do this are enormous. But since I saved you from them, I thought I'd make the offer away from their prying eyes.
I don't need to be saved.
But you do need help. As do I.
Who are you?
You and I have a common cause. Linkara's extermination. I have plans for him. Plans that require objects of great magical power.
I am more than an object.
Indeed you are. And that is why you and I are going to get along just fine.
Take it down, take it down.
As if there's anything ridiculous about this.